A couple of months ago, Netflix released their Night Stalker documentary to mixed reactions. Many believe the film to be overly graphic, recounting the murders in unnecessary detail. Others maintained that the explicit nature of the film served to condemn the actions of someone who's so often glorified by the media. Whatever your stance on the matter is, it does raise some very interesting questions. If a documentary's aim is to retell events as truthfully as possible, should it skimp over details thought to be too shocking or upsetting? Obviously, there's no definitive answer, and opinions will vary, but Night Stalker and its controversy reveal an inherent truth to documentary filmmaking, that being its capacity to disturb and unveil the darker side of humanity. But it's not the only one that accomplishes this. Here are 5 unsettling documentaries that you can watch on YouTube right now for free. Naturally, due to the graphic content of the films, viewer discretion is advised.
Tiffany and I have known each other most of her life, and we are in love with each other, and she's a great singer.
Celebrity culture, while typically an innocent form of escapism, can sometimes have very harmful repercussions. I Think We're Alone Now documents just this, revealing what happens when celebrity fandom turns to obsession. The film follows Jeff and Kelly, 2 superfans of the 80s pop singer Tiffany. Throughout the film's brief 70-minute runtime, the pair make several attempts to meet her, in the belief that when they do, they'll spend their futures together. Although their behavior is initially very off-putting, we begin to sympathize with them the more we learn. Jeff is revealed to be on the autism spectrum, while Kelly is intersex and likely suffering from some form of mental disability. It's understood then that their love for Tiffany is a means of coping with the loneliness and isolation brought upon by their conditions. While perhaps it is less disturbing than it is sad, it's still a very discomforting look at extreme fandom and celebrity worship. What is it about killers that we find so captivating? People like Bundy, Manson, and Dahmer, despite having committed heinous acts, are forever ingrained into our collective memory. But is this just an American phenomenon? Unfortunately, not so. Issei Saigawa was a Japanese man convicted of murdering and subsequently eating his classmate Renee Hartfelt in 1981. Through narration and interviews, The Cannibal That Walked Free recounts Saigawa's lonely upbringing, the murder, and subsequent media fascination with the case. Following the killing, Saigawa was deemed unfit to stand trial and was committed to the Matsuzawa Psychiatric Hospital in Tokyo. He would stay there until his release just 5 short years later. Since then, Saigawa has written several books, lectured at universities, and has even starred in a number of films. It's a truly bizarre story that speaks to our society's interest in the macabre, a curiosity so profound that it can turn a killer into a star. Grey Gardens is a very unsettling film to watch, but perhaps not in the way that you might initially think. It differs from the other documentaries on this list in that it's not overtly disturbing, but instead its film verite style is unyielding in its approach, showing its 2 subjects totally bare and unfiltered. In intimate detail, the 1975 documentary films the everyday lives of Little Edie and Big Edie Beale, 2 reclusive women living in a derelict mansion in New York. A former actress, Little Edie was forced to give up on her dreams in order to take care of her ailing mother. Now the 2 live in a dilapidated house overrun by filth and animals. Every scene, no matter how frivolous or seemingly insignificant, offers some insight into their problems, and we learn just how codependent the 2 women truly are. We watch as these 2 extraordinary characters bicker back and forth, throwing snide and bitter remarks at each other, staining every viewing moment with regret and sadness as they reminisce over their past. It's a story of broken dreams and squandered potential, at the center of which is the embittered relationship of a daughter and mother. Growing up, I'm sure many of us were told urban legends, bizarre and sometimes scary stories spread through word of mouth. While these stories often end up being fabricated, they're typically rooted in some amount of truth. The 2009 documentary Cropsey examines the urban myth of the same name, which first began circulating in the 1970s. It tells of an escaped mental patient living beneath an abandoned hospital in Staten Island. According to this legend, Cropsey would emerge at night to abduct children off the streets, never to be heard from again. While the film's initial focus is on the Cropsey legend, it soon turns its attention to the story of Andre Rand. Rand, a local drifter in the Staten Island area, became the prime suspect in a series of disappearances and murders around the same time. Despite circumstantial evidence pointing towards his culpability, authorities lacked enough concrete proof to properly convict him. And while most believed Rand was indeed the murderer, there were others that vowed for his innocence. There are even some who have tried to tie the missing children to cults or child trafficking rings. But it's the ambiguity of the facts surrounding the case and the lack of tangible proof that makes the Cropsey story so compelling and scary, and a fertile breeding ground for urban legend. Munchausen syndrome by proxy, or MSBP for short, is a mental health problem in which a caregiver fakes or causes an illness in someone under their care. While a relatively obscure disorder, MSBP gained considerable attention in 2015 following the murder of Dee Dee Blanchard at the hands of her daughter Gypsy. To friends and family, Dee Dee was a loving mother, a caretaker to her sickly, wheelchair-bound daughter. But following her death, the truth soon emerged. Dee Dee had fabricated Gypsy's conditions, coercing her daughter into pretending that she was chronically ill. Years of abuse left the young girl compliant until ultimately she saw murder as her only escape. Mommy Dead and Dearest examines the Blanchard case, beginning with Gypsy's early life and culminating in the murder of her mother. It's compiled from home videos and interviews with family, friends, and even Gypsy herself, which gives us a first-hand account of the events that transpired. While the details of the murder are undoubtedly disturbing, the abuse and trauma Gypsy suffered at the hands of her mother make this documentary a very hard one to watch.